Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking about the Sith Warrior storyline in Star Wars: The Old Republic. Full disclosure here. I'm going to be talking about spoilers for the class. So if you don't know the story of the Sith Warrior and you don't want to be spoiled, now's the time to turn away. Anyway, overall, I think the story of the Sith Warrior is actually pretty good. I had a lot of fun doing this, especially once I kind of got into episode 2. But then, that's sort of really how it tends to go. Actually, no, that's not exactly true. Once the hunt for Jason Williams really kind of kicked into high gear, like around Alderaan, I would say, I think that's when I thought the story really started to take off. Now anyway, I did play this as I usually do, as light-sided, because, well, frankly, from what I've done with the one playing of my one dark side character, I've just found the dark side in this game to just be ridiculously cartoonish. I mean, it's just mustache-twirling evil. And of course, you do want to get eventually to dark side level 5 so you can get all that cool gear that comes with that. But unless you've been taking diplomacy and doing a lot of dark side missions, this requires you to make so many decisions that are just evil for the sake of being evil, or just stupid. And honestly, I think being a light side person playing for the Imperials, it really just, you get to see a much more interesting story in my mind. It's really highlighted by how Vet, if you're playing a light side Sith Warrior, will frequently remark that you're just really not what somebody would expect out of a Sith. And frankly, for me, that's really the fun of playing light-sided Imperials. Now, obviously, there's not a huge amount that you can say about the Warrior as a character, because everybody plays them differently, and everybody has their own interpretations of the Warrior. I kind of viewed my Warrior as somebody who kind of agreed with Darth Malgus to a certain degree, that the Empire is in need of serious reform. We're being stupid by rejecting all of these aliens out of hand, or treating them like slaves. But, unlike Darth Malgus, he ultimately does remain loyal to the Empire. And I can't tell you how much fun I had when I admit I dropped the cartel coins for it and got the Sith Raider gear so that my guy could walk around in the Darth Vader-ish looking clothes that are, of course, pretty much the same as what Darth Malgus was wearing. That I ultimately did swap it out for some different armor later on, but I spent the majority of the game in that Sith Raider gear, and I loved every minute of it. And I was also really happy with the way I was able to design my character. I think out of all the characters I've designed, my Sith Warrior is really one of the best looking ones. But anyway, let's kind of get more into the ultimate story. And overall, I thought that the way things start off, once you've kind of gotten past the whole you becoming Darth Barris's apprentice thing, and you're off hunting for Jason Williams, like I said, that's where I thought things really started to get interesting, because in my mind, this is sort of where you really are starting to show what kind of a person you are as a character. And of course, it is the decisions that you make then that ultimately determine whether or not Jason Williams becomes a light side character or a dark side character. And of course, this influences her personality through the rest of the game. And so I'm just going to go through and just talk about the Sith Warrior's companions. And since I'm already bringing her up, let's just do Jason Williams. And she's actually one of my favorites of the companions. And as I said, I did play this light side, so she ended up becoming my apprentice. And I really like how the story that you get with light side Jason, it really shines a very interesting light on what's going on in the Sith Empire. That there are Sith out there who realize that, hey, the dark side is really not the way to go. That this is ultimately detrimental, destructive to our culture, our society. People who basically realize, look, there's a difference between basically being dark side. It essentially turns you into a sociopath for the vast majority of people. And that's not a productive way to run a society. You can't keep putting the most sociopathic people in charge of things, otherwise stuff's going to go to hell pretty quick. Now, so seeing that aspect, that the sort of light side underground in the Empire, we even get to see a little bit of that, the more neutral approach used by the Revenites. I find this absolutely fascinating. I would so love to see more of this in the novels, the Star Wars novels that they're using to explore what's going on in the time of the Old Republic. I think it would just make for some really, really interesting stuff. Now, Jaisa herself, I think actually with her, I think I've had so far the most satisfying relationship of actually being at the point where I have my own Padawan / apprentice. Nadia Grell, I mean, it was there, but I don't know. It just it didn't really feel like I was teaching her really to be a Jedi so much as I was helping her deal with what was going on in her life. Well, I don't want to get into that in case you haven't played the Consular. With Kira Carson, she really felt more like a partner, like her and the Jedi Knight were these kind of like I hate to say buddy cops, but I think there was a certain amount of that going on with her over when I was playing my knight. Here, it really does feel like you are genuinely teaching Jaisa. You are guiding her along a philosophical path. You are providing her encouragement. You're helping her interpret and deal with her successes and failures. You really do feel like she is your apprentice, and that she is a reflection of what you have done and what you have said to her. And of course, the fact that she becomes light side or dark side depending on your actions, yeah, that's really awesome. I kind of wish they'd incorporated more of that into what was going on with Kira and Nadia. And I haven't gotten far enough with my either. I have a light side and a dark side Inquisitor, and I haven't gotten to the point where either of them have an apprentice. They're not yet, but I know that's pretty late in the game for them. But anyway, so overall, yeah, I really did enjoy Kira as the companion. Now, since I was playing light side, I of course immediately freed Vet when she asked, and ultimately my character ended up marrying her. And let's not mince words about it. Vet is meant to be a very blatant riff on Mission Veo from the original Knights of the Old Republic game. I mean, she's got this very similar design, and they have a very similar design. Their personalities are very, very similar, and they share the same voice actress. Of course, the thing with the Vet mission in the original game is that she was like 14 years old, so yeah, pursuing romance under those circumstances would just, well, anyway. But anyway, Vet was fun. I mean, the Warrior says, she's charming, she's beautiful, she's a little bit crazy, but like you said, she's fun to talk to. She's fun to have in your party. She says a lot of fun things. Now, her personal story, I thought it was reasonably strong. It really gives you a sense of somebody who has led a very unstable life, but who has really managed to hold on to at least a few things. Her core values as a person, what she truly, truly believes in. She's never given up on wanting to be with her family. She's kept this promise to her mother to never sleep with anybody until she gets married. And the great thing about it all is that it doesn't there is no 100% happy ending for her. It's all still tinged with tragedy, with the biggest, of course, being that Vet finally does find her mother, but she's too late. Her mother has been dead for a couple of days, so Vet never got to reconcile with her. And of course, she has a big blow up with her sister. So while Vet ultimately does get a reasonably happy ending, there's still some bumps along the way. And what can I say? I just like that. Now, granted, I was playing a human warrior, so you think that given the politics of the Empire, that the whole him marrying a Twi'lek, especially one that had been his former slave, might raise a few eyebrows. But again, this is if you're familiar with the expanded universe, it's essentially what Darth Malgus did. Now, I don't think he and Alara and was it Alara Dorn, I believe is how her name is said. Now, I don't think they were ever officially married. If I remember, I read the Deception novel, and it basically said that people just sort of figured that she was basically his sex slave, and that it was only in private that he ever expressed any sort of ever showed that he truly did love her, show anything like a more it was only when they were alone that he ever showed even a hint of who he really was underneath the metaphorical mask, as it were. And that's actually a pretty good novel. It really gives you some insight into what's going on inside Darth Malgus' head, and helps make a lot of the things that he ultimately ends up doing in the game make a lot more sense. Now, speaking of Imperials, actually no, let's pause for a moment and talk about Brunmark. Honestly, I really don't have a whole lot to say about Brunmark. So far I found Brunmark to be the least interesting companion I've come across with any of my playthroughs as a character. Whenever I was talking, it was just like, yeah, okay, whatever. Just tell the psycho alien whatever he wants to hear. It's just like, okay, I have my XP, great. I honestly just did not care for Brunmark, and frankly, I think they could have done a much better job on giving him a more interesting motivation for joining up with the Warrior. Which brings us to our two genuine Imperial characters, Pierce and Quinn. And I love how just completely and utterly night and day these two guys are. They're just such polar opposites, and I love that they really, really don't like each other. And that makes perfect sense. If you were to put two guys with these sort of personalities in the same room to each other, yeah, it would be no surprise at all that they would hate each other. But overall, I actually much preferred Quinn. I don't know. There was just something about Pierce that sort of rubbed me the wrong way. I guess I sort of saw a little bit more of myself in Quinn and his sort of analytical approach to life, which I guess is, I think, a little bit more in keeping with the way I kind of live my life. But what's interesting about the two of these guys is that, as different as they are, their core thing is that they are firm Imperial patriots. They believe in the Empire, and they are extremely dedicated to the Empire. Now, the way they do it is very different, but that dedication is there nonetheless. You know, for Pierce, he's this former Black Ops guy. His main storyline is, you know, helping him put together this putting the band back together for, you know, one spectacular mission on Corellia. And as long as you show him, you know, basically kind of compliment him and, you know, say that, like, wow, you and your friends sound like really cool badass dudes, you know, he's perfectly happy. And I don't really think, I guess what I want to say is that hearing Pierce's story certainly fleshes out the Empire more than it fleshes him out as a character. You really learn a lot more about how things are done in the Imperial military and what's going on, like, and what they do and what's going on and things like that. But, you know, Pierce as a character himself, you know, I just really wasn't terribly interested in his backstory or anything like that. So, now with Quinn, I actually Quinn's main problem is that he's very much what you see is what you get. And what you see is this very dedicated, very talented Imperial officer who just pretty much totally lives to serve the Empire. And that's the problem. That's really all there is to Quinn. There's no hidden side. There's not really much in the way of a lighter side. Now, of course, if you're playing a female character, you can romance him, but I've read some stuff about that, seen some of the videos on YouTube, and that looks interesting enough. But everything related to Pierce and Quinn is really kind of related to them and their relationship with the Empire. Like Quinn is dealing with like this at this Moff who's trying to sabotage his career, or this enemy, this Republic agent who he kind of considers his nemesis. And it gets to the point that Quinn even spends his salary on upgrades to your ship, and it's just like, God, Quinn, do you have anything beyond your dedication to the Empire? I mean, it's actually established if you poke around enough in the EU that Quinn does have a hobby, and that is going through the Imperial census data looking for errors. That's what he does to relax. And while that's certainly funny, it doesn't really do the best job of enriching Quinn as a character. He's in one regard very one note. But it's also kind of ironic that it turns out that it's Quinn that is the one that is betraying you to Darth Barris. I mean, he even ultimately says, "My ultimate loyalty is to Darth Barris." Not because he particularly wants to be loyal to Darth Barris, but Quinn just doesn't want his career to be stuck in the mud like he was on Belsavis. And I really like the way that plays out. You can even say to him, basically, after everything I've done for you, you would betray me to Darth Barris. And frankly, given what Quinn has seen you do, the fact that he would choose to side with you and Darth Barris instead of you, I personally think is kind of questionable. Especially if you're playing a light side person who has said to Quinn, I value you greatly. I consider you to be an extreme asset to me. I don't know. The fact that it just really feels like Quinn would be the guy that would do would be smarter about which horse he backed. Now, sure, Darth Barris is a Darth. He's bucking for. He's got a pretty good shot at bucking his way onto the Dark Council. But still, after everything that Quinn has seen the Warrior do at that point, and this is especially crazy if you're playing as the female Sith Warrior, because at that point Quinn can be your husband. And I was doing some reading about this. Apparently people who played the very early version of the game, back when it was possible for companion characters to either permanently leave your party or be permanently killed off, there was going to have been an option to just flat out kill Quinn for his betrayal. Somebody came across some dialogue somehow of the Warrior and Pierce talking about Quinn being dead. And I have to say, I did find it just a little unrealistic that the Warrior would not kill Quinn for this. I mean, my guy, this is one of the few times where I just said screw it and took the dark side option and had my Warrior use the Force to beat the living hell out of Quinn. But after that, I was like, okay, I've whooped the hell out of you for betraying me. Don't let it happen again. But other than that, we're just gonna forget about what's happened. Again, doesn't really feel terribly realistic, but you know what? Considering that Quinn was the companion I used most of the game once I had him, that's one I'm willing to let slide. Let me see here. Oh yeah, I never did. I started down the road to getting HK, but oh my god, this whole running around searching for those parts on like Terrace and all these other planets. Man, I spent like an hour and a half just doing that on Terrace before I said screw it. This is not worth it. Now I did pick up Treek, the newest available companion, but I haven't been able to get her affection up to have had more than really one conversation with her. So personally, I think Treek's fun, but beyond that, I really don't have much of an opinion. Now, getting back to the story of the Sith Warrior. I like how, if you really pay attention, you notice that a lot of these class storylines have kind of a theme. For example, you'll have this, you're introduced early on often to somebody who will essentially be your nemesis for the early part of the game. Like the smuggler has Skavik, the consular has crud, I forget the name of the guy who's the main bad guy in the first chapter of the Consular story. The Jedi Knight has Darth Angral and all this other stuff. Now here you don't really have a nemesis proper until about the middle of the story, when, surprise, surprise, Darth Varys betrays you. But honestly, this is... I mean, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed that buildup of like, okay, we're slowly by surely going to start kicking the blocks out from under Darth Varys until we're able to a point where you can face off against him yourself. And I gotta say, when I won that fight and just said, okay, I can live with getting some dark side points here, and killed the guy, I mean, it was just so darn satisfying. Not quite as satisfying, I think, as... yeah, I have to say, the most satisfying I got from taking on these like early chapter nemesises was when I killed Skavek as a smuggler. Oh man, I was like, oh, I hate you. I'm gonna get you. I don't care if I have to chase you to the end of the galaxy. I am gonna get you, Skavek. And when I was finally able to take him down, it was just so darn sweet. But, and then of course you have the very satisfying ending with going, the Emperor's wrath shall consume them all. And then you get the message that the Emperor is still alive. You know, it's really a shame that it feels, from what I've been hearing, that they're not exactly going to continue the class storylines in the future. Because, frankly, there's just so much, in my mind, left that particularly the Sith Warrior could be out there doing. I mean, it's even stated, except for the Dark Council, like, there's nobody in the Empire more powerful than you but the Emperor. And it's like, you are a huge, huge player in the galaxy. I mean, there's only one of you. There's 12 people in the Dark Council, which, frankly, in my book, I think puts you one up on the ultimate destiny of the Sith Inquisitor. So, but you know, you hear so many crazy things involving what's going on with Swtor. So, who knows? I mean, companies change their minds on these things all the time. You hear a lot of crazy misinformation. You just really never know. But anyway, overall, I'd have to say the Sith Warrior is a very satisfying class to play. I played as the Juggernaut, incidentally. I think I forgot to mention that. And it really is, as they described it in... as BioWare described it when they were leading up to releasing Swtor, when they called it the Darth Vader fantasy. And it was really just an absolute blast to play this sort of character, but somebody who actually chose to pursue a less dark path than Vader did, albeit one that was still covered in a lot of blood and more than a few outright evil actions. But it was fun, and it was interesting, and it was definitely worth the time I put into it. So anyway, guys, that's all I have for you this time around. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.